Well, happy whatever day this is that you're watching us today. This is Richard Rosen, Winnipeg's friendliest undertaker, recording another episode of In Discussions and In Conversations with someone that is in the digital asset and tech sector. We have Ari Brojde with us today, and he is the CEO of Stateably. And if you're wondering what Stateably is, it is a web-based platform that empowers trust and estate professionals to digitize their practices through automation and enhanced compliance while facilitating practice-wide collaboration. Now that's a mouthful, and we're recording at lunchtime, so now I'm quite full. I will wash this down with some water afterwards, and Ari is going to explain what that means in more language that we can understand. And the questions that are going to be posed in the conversation we're going to have today, again, will be facilitated by our good friend Sharon Hartung, who is the author of Your Digital Undertaker. And Sharon has known Ari for quite some time, and so she's going to ask these questions. So you've got to appreciate that in the funeral business, it's really sometimes quite hard to be able to have conversations with folks about pre-planning and those sorts of things. But what I find is, and in any conversation when it's awkward, is to try to find common ground. And for all of us, social media, digital things, we live in a digital world, an online presence, from Netflix to doorbells and lighting and thermostats and security systems. And everything is interconnected somehow to your phone. And we need to take care of those things. We need to plan for our digital executors to understand our estates, because it's not just dishes and it's not just golf clubs. So with that, we're going to get right into this. We've got about 20 minutes or so make sure you've got a fresh cup of whatever you want to have to drink. And I will turn this over to Sharon. Sharon, welcome again, and thank you very much for being here today. And Ari, thank you, and we'll turn it over to Sharon.
Thanks so much, Richard. Wonderful to see you, Ari. You and I have been talking a lot about the digitization of the estate industry and the role that solutions like yours will now play in the equation. You know, the tech and innovation that's transforming green burials is also innovating the estate industry. So let's get right to it. How did you come to launch your company? When, where, how, why? Tell us all about it.
That's great to see you too, Sharon, and thank you, Richard, for the opportunity to speak today. So the company was actually founded in March of 2018, and there's a bit of a backstory to it, as there is with most tech companies, and it stemmed from my grandmother having passed away in 2015, in November of 2015. And just before this call, I was on another call where we're actually looking for a director of marketing of the company, and he heard of the story, and he said this is something that should be put front and center in all our marketing. That most good innovation occurs from personal tragedy. But I had to correct him, because there was nothing tragic about my grandmother's death. She lived a very full, healthy, interesting life. She was a Holocaust survivor, but she passed away in 2015, and she left a very modest estate. The estate, she didn't own property. She was a renter. She rented an apartment. She had a very modest RIF at the time, a couple $100,000. And in terms of beneficiaries, her three grandchildren, of which I'm one, were named as beneficiaries, and a single executor. So the assumption from someone who didn't know much about what happens after people pass away was that this would be a simple estate, something that would take a relatively short period of time to settle. And by November 2017, 2 years after she had passed away, we were nowhere close to having our inheritance. And I kind of approached the problem. I became very intellectually curious about what occurred in this process, or what was occurring behind the process to make it so difficult and so lengthy in terms of time. And I thought to myself, look, we're in a digital age today. We've put people on the moon. We can order something from Amazon today. I can order something right now, and by 24 hours, it'll be on my desk. And humans have been dying since time immemorial. Why are we so bad at it? And so I became very interested in learning about the process. My background is my background's in financial services, but before that, I studied liberal arts in college. And I remember back from my mythology classes, we had a term called psychopomps. And psychopomps referred to, in old mythological times, referred to deities, for lack of a better term, that were responsible for helping to guide and transport the souls of the dead into the underworld. And so I think we had it right a long, long time ago, and somehow we lost our way. And so I became very intellectually curious about the process, and started enrolling in some courses offered by Step Canada. They offer a great course in a certificate in estate and trust administration. And what struck me as I started to learn about the underlying process was that the fundamental challenge of estate administration is that it requires a business network to form around the death of a person. And we like it Stateably, we like to call that a terminal network. I mean, we do a great job while we're alive at networking. And we found, obviously, as the pandemic has hit, we found more and more interesting and innovative ways to network. But most people aren't aware that you're still networking after you pass away. And you have one last network to create. And the fundamental characteristics about that network is it's comprised of organizations and participants that perhaps don't even know you. They are government agencies, the executor, him and herself, beneficiaries, creditors, funeral home directors, the whole gamut of people that need to come together and form a business network. And the fundamental problem with that is that because of the legal and financial liability that's associated with missteps in the process, none of these participants trust one another. So that results in very lengthy delays in the estate administration process. And so as a technologist, I looked at this problem from a technology lens. We often hear about how the best professional tools are those built by professionals. But when we talk about innovation, it often helps when someone comes in from an outsider's lens and takes a 35,000-foot view at a specific process and tries to identify what are the problems that exist in that process. And that's what we've done at Estateably.
Wow, Ari, that's incredible. You're absolutely right. The network that has to form around the individual, as you know, I look at it from a project management lens. It's a brand new project, and the project manager is new, and the team members are new, and that's a challenging thing to do in a very difficult time. So let's turn right to your solution and offering. Why don't we start with, who is your target market? Are you Canadian? Are you does it cover US? Which provinces in Canada? Like, where is your market
Sure.
for your solution?
Sure. So we're headquartered in Montreal, and so our solution was originally offered in the Quebec market. We launched that in August of 2020, just a few months after the pandemic. And then we launched in Ontario. We launched support for Ontario in the I'd say November of last year, and we'll be moving in April to cover BC and Alberta. And our customers are really professionals who help with the estate administration process, and that can be law firms, it could be accounting firms, and also the major financial institutions through their trust company arms.
Okay, so let's take a first step into the solution itself. You know, I like to talk about what business problem is it solving, what is the business process that's being facilitated or automated or innovated. So let's go right there and tell us a little bit about the inside.
Okay, so first and foremost, what the solution does is it seeks to address one of the biggest problems in the administration, in the administrative work that has to take place with the estate. And that is that today it's an extremely manual process that people need to go through in terms of filling forms for courts, in terms of generating letters to keep people abreast of what's happening about the progress of the estate, in terms of generating inventories of assets. Most people today can pass away owning, having a complex portfolio of assets. And all those different assets need to be itemized. It's part of the normal process of and procedures of being able to distribute the estate is to be able to create that inventory. And those processes are often done manually. They take and the more complex an estate can get, the more time it takes to get that information done. Accounting needs to be done for every estate. So you need to be able to capture every single financial transaction that occurs in the estate and present beneficiaries at the end of the administration with those accounts. You need to be able to make sure that you're distributing assets either according to intestacy laws, which is what happens when people pass away without a will, or when, in the case when there is a will, according to the wishes of and intentions of the testator, the person, the will maker. And in the future, we are currently investing very heavily in technology and research and development, and we're going to be releasing very interesting features that will help people through AI, machine learning, computer vision, to be able to upload statements into our platform, have those financial transactions be spit out onto a ledger, as well as being able to take a will, for instance, and being able to interpret that and generate distribution schemas based off the wishes in the will. So automation is a very key piece. The second piece, and Richard, I think you touched on this a little bit at the beginning, is the collaborative nature of everything that occurs in the estate space. And one of the deficiencies we learned from having spoken to a lot of professionals before we even engineered our solution was the fact that it's very rare for one single individual to be the only touch point with regards to the estate administration. There often needs to be collaboration amongst lawyers, accountants, other professionals, sometimes, and often the executors themselves. And today there was no one good tool that made it that made that collaboration efficient and allowed it to happen online. Getting back to the problem that I mentioned earlier about keeping about the fiduciary duties and creating problems when missteps occur. One of the major problems that professionals have is keeping accurate and timely logs of all the activities that occur related to the estate. And of course, as society, as the states become more complex, the chance of litigation is heightened. And today, what happens is because the estate administration is so labor intensive, people are very busy. The professionals are very busy with the day-to-day administration that they often don't record those steps. So they often end up doing that 2 or 3 weeks sometimes after a task has been completed. And that obviously results in a big compliance gap, a big compliance issue. So one of the things that we do is we automate a collection, an audit log, if you will, of all those aspects in the estate that could be generated with a click of a button. So those are the kind of ways that our platform is helping professionals today to make their practices more efficient. One of the things that we've learned, throughout the course of doing business, is that today professionals are constrained by their capacity because of the labor intensiveness of the process. They often can't take on more files than they'd like to because every file takes quite a bit of time. So if we can reduce the amount of effort and time it takes for professionals, they're able to take on more files. But moreover, and I think this is a point that can't be underscored enough, is that in any process, it doesn't have to be with the states. There's a human aspect and there's also an administrative aspect. And what's great about technology is we can automate a lot of the administrative aspects. And if it's the case that we are opening up capacity for professionals, they're better positioned to deal with the human aspect of the administration of the death. And I think it's going to be a big benefit for not only professionals, but for grieving families and beneficiaries.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. So there's a lot of things being covered there: audit, traceability, and compliance. There's data integrity, because you're capturing the information once, you're making it available to various formats that are required. So why don't we delve down just one more layer deeper and maybe look at the data side? Maybe you could talk to us about before and after. So a fiduciary, say this is a lay person, or it could be a trust company or a professional fiduciary, as you mentioned, needs to deal with multiple people in a specific estate administration. So they may have to get a tax accountant to help with taxes. They may have to get a lawyer to fill out documentation for probate. They may have to go to a financial institution and and authenticate themselves in order to direct what happens to funds. Though in those three scenarios, with one fiduciary, there's three potential opportunities that data is being shared, and data is given to the lawyer, the tax accountant, and the financial institution. Again, they write it down in whatever system they have, and then they deal with it. So maybe take that kind of scenario and talk about what's happened in the past from a paper perspective, and then how does your solution enable the advisor to do it more efficiently, more accurately, more timely, et cetera.
And I think a good way to speak about this data problem is really to give a concrete example of a sub process that occurs in estate administration. And in fact, in the early days of the company, one of the questions we would go and ask professionals is, of this entire process that we all know very well, which one gives you the most pain in the butt? And time again, people would say that getting a tax clearance certificate from the CRA was one of the most challenging and time consuming, not in terms of the effort that was required, just in terms of the delay.
Time delay, yeah.
The time delay. And so what happens, that process has been manual since tax clearances were invented. And essentially what occurs is the CRA wants to know, well, first, why is the tax clearance certificate important? It essentially absolves the fiduciary, the executor of future tax liabilities against the estate. It kind of gives a stamp of approval from the CRA that all the taxes and notices of assessment have been paid, and the executor can then be free to distribute the assets to the beneficiaries. In order to apply for a tax clearance certificate, you have to collect data from multiple sources. First, you need a death certificate because the CRA needs to know that the person on behalf of which you're applying for is in fact deceased. They also need to know that you're the person applying is the person who is the personal representative of the estate that has essentially the authority. So on the first case, you need to download or request a death certificate from either a provincial body or from the funeral home director. To prove that you're the rightful executor, you need some sort of letters of administration or letters of probate from the probate court. And you need other information that the executor needs to get from tax accountants or from the lawyers themselves regarding the benefit, who are the beneficiaries, what are their SIN numbers, what has been distributed to date, and how are you going to plan on distributing the assets going forward. And so from a data collection perspective, you're taking often information that exists in the government ecosystem, taking it outside, assembling it into a paper package, writing all the information down, and then resubmitting it back into the government ecosystem. And you can see how the kind of silo-based nature of this process can really create delays. I mean, what happens on the CRA's end is the person will receive this package, and because these certificates, are paper-based, they'll look at the paper, they'll hold it up, they'll look at the light, they'll make sure that the embossment is authentic. And what is a certificate at the end of the day? It's really a piece of paper that's holding data, and that gives you a credential to do something. That gives you the authority to do something. And I think in the future, we're going to go more paperless on the estate administration side. And that information, if all those different individuals that I just mentioned could be placed into a private network, so a secure and private network where that information can be shared freely in the network, you're going to see a big reduction in the amount of time it takes for processes like the tax clearance certificate.
Wow, that's a fantastic example, because in itself, the CRA tax clearance process has a number of requirements that you've laid out. There's time for whoever does it, the fiduciary, or if the fiduciary engages an agent or advisor, they're going to have to collect all that information. So you're going to have to put that somewhere while you wait as you collect the pieces. Then you're going to have to meet the requirements that the CRA is looking for, and then finally send it off. So your solution is able to address both of those. Well, there's many aspects to that: the data collection, the time lags, the compliance, and then waiting. So that's a great. So just to close on our part one here, if you could just recap for me your solution in terms of which provinces it is in now, where are you planning to be, and then exactly the kinds of clients that have been aided by your solution. Like, is it law firms or single lawyers, or is it a fiduciary, or who? who can take advantage of your solution is basically the
Absolutely.
question.
So I'll touch on the jurisdictional element first. So we launched in Quebec back in August. In November, we launched in Ontario. Alberta and BC are going to be coming in April, so in a couple weeks from today. I guess depending on when people will see this video, we may already be launched in those two provinces. And then a goal for the rest of this calendar year is to have support for the rest of the jurisdictions in Canada. Starting in 2022, we'll then move to the US as the same problems that exist here in Canada are also evident in the US as well. In terms of the customer base, one of the important things that we noted was that at the onset, we were getting a lot of traction with both the sole practitioners, whether they be accounting firms or law firms, as well as the regional firms. So we define regional firms as professional firms that have sometimes one or sometimes multiple offices, but contained in a single jurisdiction. And the characteristic of those firms, if you will, is that because of their smaller size, they're a lot more nimble to act. So if you can provide them with features that they're interested and excited about, and they can really see the value in the efficiency gains that the platform can afford to their practices, they've been very, very quick to move. And we've seen, just in Ontario itself, since we launched in November, we have over 100 customers using our platform. So it's been the traction's been very, very good. With the larger firms, with the national and accounting and law firms, as well as the big financial institutions in Canada, they're also looking for a solution. But of course, they're constrained a little bit in terms of their agility by making sure that security has been taken care of by any vendor that they deal with. And so it was important for us in the summer of last year to start working towards getting security certifications that would allow us to sell to those bigger businesses. And we've just achieved that last week. And so we're happy to be engaged with those national level firms today.
With that, why don't we close with you telling us, Ari, how can someone get a demo of your solution? Where can they reach out and connect with you? And where do you hang out from a social media perspective?
I'll start with the last question. So I actually deleted my Facebook account a couple of years ago. Still have Instagram, so I guess I'm kind of affiliated with Facebook, but mainly on LinkedIn. I find it a great networking tool. And in terms of getting a demo of our platform, people can visit www.estateably.com. And it'll be hard to miss the book of demo call to action. It's on almost every page. So invite anyone who's interested in learning about our solution to visit the website. And if you're a professional and are interested in how our tool can help your practice, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, I'd say, Richard, I turn it back to you to close out part one.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ari. When you mentioned about the tax clearance, my mom died in July of 2019. And so there's just me. I'm the only child. There's nobody left. I'm the beneficiary of everything. And, I was told that don't expect to see anything from CRA for 18 to 24 months. And I thought, okay, well, this is a piece of paper. Like, what are they doing? Why? This is silly. Why does this take so long? Now I realize we're in a pandemic and we're in COVID, and I realize that things are going to even take longer. But it just seems, you're right. It's why this is, in a world that we were told it was supposed to be paperless, we've got more paper, more trees that we're losing than we ought to. And silos, you're right. We shouldn't be living in silos. We really need to have that collaboration, because when you do, things go a whole lot smoother. So, and I broke silos with my mom because when I became executor, I didn't know anything about what her financial situation was. I didn't know about her investments. I didn't know anything. And I brought everybody together on the phone. I had her accountant, I had the lawyer, and I had the financial person. And we all talked together so that everybody understood. Now, I did that because I needed my own protection so that when things were being done, I didn't want to have a problem. So I broke down the silos, and it was still a paper process, but it certainly made me feel a lot better. And I think Estateably is going to make life a whole lot simpler for the practitioner, but more especially for the client. When they come in and say, we're stuck, we don't know anything, we don't even live in the same province or anything, country that our loved one did. How do we go through all of this stuff? And I think yours is a brilliant solution. So thank you. And thank you for your story, because it always comes from somewhere that you see a need and you need to fill it. So we're appreciative of that. So thank you again, Ari. So that this pretty much wraps up part one. Just a couple of things of note. We are providing these interviews with people in specific areas of tech sector industry talking about digital assets. And they're offering products and they're offering solutions and services. We're not endorsing any particular company at all. What we're doing is just providing the information as we see it coming forward, to be able to share it and give it to you to take a look at, and perhaps share with your professional people that you're dealing with for estate planning or moving through an estate process. We really encourage you to make sure that you are dealing with your own professionals, and just sharing this advice might be able to help encourage them to reach out to Ari and some of the other vendors that we've talked to. So that is it for us here this afternoon. This is Richard Rosen, Winnipeg's friendliest undertaker, Winnipeg's Green Funeral Company, signing off for another event. And take care and keep safe. Thanks.